What if I told you that the person sitting quietly in the corner isn't broken, isn't shy, isn't unfriendly, and definitely isn't boring? What if they're actually operating at a completely different level of consciousness? Today on Wired Logic HQ, we're breaking the psychology of people who don't talk much. And trust me, what science has discovered about their brains might completely change how you see them, and maybe even how you see yourself. Let's start with what you probably think you know. Someone's quiet, so they must be shy. They prefer to stay home, so they must be depressed. They don't make small talk, so they must be unfriendly. They're not the loudest in the room, so they must lack confidence. All of these assumptions are not just wrong, they're dangerously wrong, and they have real consequences for real people. The term introvert gets used like a diagnosis, like there's something that needs fixing. But introversion isn't a personality flaw. It's not shyness. It's not social anxiety, though those can coexist. And it's definitely not a sign that someone lacks intelligence or charisma. Let me tell you what we actually know from psychological and neuroscientific research. Susan Cain, author of the groundbreaking book Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, spent years researching this exact topic. She discovered something that fundamentally changed how we should think about quiet people. She observed, extroverts are more likely to focus on what's happening around them. It's as if extroverts are seeing what is, while their introverted peers are asking what if. That simple observation opens a door to understanding why quiet people operate differently. It's not that they're incapable of speaking. It's that they're asking different questions. They're thinking more deeply. They're processing more internally. And according to neuroscience, this isn't just a metaphorical difference. It's a literal, measurable difference in their brains. Here's where it gets fascinating. Harvard researchers conducted a study comparing the brains of introverts and extroverts, and they found something remarkable. Introverts have thicker gray matter in their prefrontal cortex compared to extroverts. That might sound like technical jargon, but here's what it means in practical terms. Gray matter is the tissue in the outer layer of your brain that processes and releases new information. More gray matter in the prefrontal cortex means more capacity for complex thinking, analysis, and planning. The prefrontal cortex is where analysis and rational thought happen. It's where you solve problems, make strategic decisions, and engage in deep thinking. Introverts literally have more tissue dedicated to this kind of thinking. It's like comparing a standard-sized hard drive to an upgraded one. There's just more capacity. But wait, there's more. Another crucial study using positron emission tomography, basically brain imaging technology, found that even at rest, introverted brains show more activity and increased blood flow to their frontal lobes. Let that sink in. When introverts are just sitting quietly, their brains are already more active. They're not being lazy or withdrawn. They're actively processing, thinking, analyzing. Their brains are working harder, not less hard. Now let's talk about dopamine. This is where the real magic happens, and why introverts and extroverts are wired so fundamentally differently. Dopamine is what neuroscientists call a reward chemical. It's released in response to stimulation and drives us towards seeking more stimulation. Here's the key difference. Extroverts have a relatively low sensitivity to dopamine. Their brains essentially need more dopamine hits to feel satisfied and engaged. They need more stimulation. Introverts, on the other hand, have a much higher sensitivity to dopamine. Less is more for their brains. They get stimulated and energized more easily. This is why a quiet evening at home feels restorative for an introvert. Their dopamine system is already satisfied. They don't need the constant external stimulation that an extrovert craves. They're not rejecting socializing because they're afraid. They're opting out because too much stimulation becomes overwhelming. Think of it this way. Imagine a volume knob. Introverts start with their dial already turned up to a 7. Add social interaction, noise, unpredictability, and that dial climbs to an 8, then a 9, then a 10. They're maxed out. Extroverts, their dial starts at a 2. They need to turn it up significantly just to feel engaged. So when an introvert says they're drained after a party, they're not being dramatic. They've genuinely experienced neurological overstimulation. Their brain has been running in overdrive. There's another fascinating difference we need to talk about. Introverts show greater sensitivity to acetylcholine, a different neurochemical than dopamine. Acetylcholine is associated with feelings of happiness when you're in a calm, thoughtful state. It reinforces inward focus and reflection. This is why quiet activities, reading, writing, deep conversation with one person, creative pursuits, feel genuinely rewarding and energizing to introverts. It's not a preference they've learned. It's neurologically embedded. Okay, so introverts have different brains. But so what? What does that actually mean for how they function in the world? It means they have superpowers that extroverts don't naturally possess. Let me walk you through 4 of the most important ones, based on rigorous psychological research. First, deeper thinking and focus. Neuroscientist Friedrich Fabricius points out that introverts' increased frontal lobe activity translates directly into superior analytical ability. Think of Albert Einstein, a classic introvert. His teachers thought he was a loner lost in his own thoughts. But Einstein himself said something revealing. It's that I stay with problems longer. That single statement captures the essence of the introvert's superpower. Because their brains are naturally inclined toward inward focus, introverts naturally invest more extended periods of deep attention to problems. This translates to mastery. When you're willing to invest hours, days, months in deep focus on a single problem or skill, you develop expertise faster. Research bears this out. About 70% of gifted individuals, people with above-average intelligence and superior talent in specialized areas, are introverts. That's not a coincidence. It's a direct result of this neurological tendency toward deep focus. Second, superior listening and observation skills. Because introverts spend more time observing than talking, they become extraordinarily attuned to what's happening around them and within other people. This isn't just about being quiet. It's about the quality of attention they bring to interactions. When an introvert is listening to you, they're fully present. They're processing your words, your tone, your body language, your emotional subtext. This makes them phenomenal advisors, therapists, negotiators, and leaders. Susan Cain emphasizes this in her research. Introverts excel in situations that reward careful listening and thoughtful analysis. A study on social conformity published in Frontiers in Psychology found something else that's important and kind of troubling. Extroverts are significantly more likely to conform to majority opinion, even when that opinion is objectively wrong. The higher the social pressure, the more extroverts conform. Introverts? They showed no significant change in their responses to high or low pressure situations. They're less susceptible to social manipulation and more likely to stick to their convictions based on internal values rather than external pressure. Third, creativity and innovation. When you spend significant amounts of time in deep thought, when you ask, what if instead of just observing what is, you naturally generate novel ideas. Research on brainstorming has shown something that surprises many people. Group brainstorming actually reduces overall creativity and productivity. The presence of others, the pressure to contribute immediately, the social dynamics, these all suppress creative thinking. But when you let people generate ideas individually, and introverts have the space to do this deeply, the quality of ideas skyrockets. Fourth, moral integrity and independent thinking. Here's something powerful that comes from that neurological resistance to dopamine seeking and social conformity. Introverts are less likely to compromise their values for social rewards. They're not looking for the dopamine hit of being liked or approved. They're operating from internal conviction. They're more likely to make ethical choices even when those choices carry social costs. This isn't virtue signaling, it's neurology. Now, I want to be honest about something. All these superpowers come with a cost in a world that's been optimized for extroversion. If you're an introvert, or if you know and care about one, you've probably encountered a specific kind of misunderstanding that causes real harm. People constantly make assumptions. "You're so quiet," said with concern, as if quietness is a problem that needs solving. "You must be shy. Are you okay? You seem sad. You need to open up more. Your problem is that you don't network." These comments reveal something important. We live in a culture that has systematized extroversion. We reward it. We celebrate it. We build our workplaces, our schools, our social structures around it. Recent research from Old Dominion University reveals something troubling. Across multiple studies, introverts were rated as significantly less competent than extroverts, regardless of actual performance or the type of job involved. Why? Because people stereotyped introverts as cold and unfriendly. And somehow, in our collective mind, being quiet got equated with being incompetent. This isn't a reflection of reality. It's a reflection of our biases. The research shows this bias is so strong that even introverts hold it about other introverts. That's what's called stereotype threat. When you internalize the negative stereotypes about your group, your performance actually suffers. You start performing in ways consistent with the stereotype. An introvert might hold back in a meeting because they believe quiet people aren't valued, not because they lack ideas. There's also something called emotional labor. When introverts feel they need to fake extroversion to succeed professionally, when they suppress their natural style to fit in, they experience internal stress. It's exhausting. The energy required to maintain a false exterior drains them even more than normal social interaction would. They're not just managing the interaction, they're managing the performance, and that's cognitively expensive. But here's what needs to happen. Introverts shouldn't change who they are. The world should change how it values different types of contribution. The research is clear. Diverse thinking styles, including the introvert's deep, analytical, observation-focused approach, leads to better decisions, more innovation, and stronger organizations. When you silence the quiet people, you're literally removing valuable cognitive capacity from the table. I should mention something important. We've been discussing introversion, a personality trait related to how people are energized and stimulated. But there are related conditions that are different and deserve attention. Selective mutism, for instance, is a psychological condition where individuals struggle to speak in specific social situations despite being capable of speech. It's different from introversion. It involves anxiety and often requires professional treatment. Research from the Selective Mutism Center has found that children with selective mutism often have close relatives with social anxiety disorder. It's not just personality. It involves neuroticism, anxiety, and emotion regulation challenges. There's also social anxiety, a genuine anxiety disorder distinct from introversion. Someone can be socially anxious and extroverted, or introverted and socially confident. These are different dimensions. Social anxiety involves fear of judgment and negative evaluation. It's not about preferring quiet or being energized differently. It's about fear itself. The important distinction is this. An introvert at a party might not be talking much because they're managing stimulation and recharging. A socially anxious person at a party is likely anxious and uncomfortable, possibly experiencing panic. These require different understandings and support strategies. If you're an introvert, or if you know someone who is, here are the things that research suggests quiet people wish others understood. Number 1. Quiet doesn't mean shy. An introvert can walk into a room, give a presentation, lead a meeting, or make a room laugh. They're not afraid of talking or socializing. They're just selective about when and how much they engage. And they need recovery time afterward. That's not shyness. That's personality. Number 2. Deep listening is a gift. When an introvert is quiet, they're often processing, analyzing, and truly hearing you. In a world of constant talking, Deep listening is increasingly rare and valuable. It's not a lack of engagement. It's a different kind of engagement. Number 3, alone time isn't sad. An introvert curled up with a book or working alone on a project isn't necessarily lonely or depressed. They might be perfectly content, intellectually stimulated, and emotionally fulfilled. Don't pathologize solitude. Number 4, small talk is genuinely draining. This is neurological, not snobbish. Surface-level conversation doesn't activate their reward systems the way meaningful discussion does. They're not judging you for wanting to chat about the weather. They're just honestly running low on social battery. Number 5, they might not network the traditional way, but they build deep professional relationships. Introverts often develop fewer but stronger professional connections. They might not work a room at a conference, but they nurture one-on-one relationships that last years. Different strategies, not inferior ones. Number 6, being quiet doesn't mean they lack ideas or confidence. Some of the most influential thinkers, leaders, and innovators in history were introverts. Their ideas just come out differently. In writing, in one-on-one conversations, in careful presentations, rather than in spontaneous group shout-outs. If we accept the science, and the science is pretty convincing, then organizations and communities should adapt. Friedrich Fabricius, a neuroscientist who works with major corporations on talent retention, has some specific recommendations. First, respect boundaries around interruption. Research shows it takes about 23 minutes for someone to regain focus after an interruption. If you want your quiet employees to deliver their best work, don't expect immediate responses to every message and meeting request. Create structures that allow for deep work. Second, change your brainstorming process. Stop relying on group brainstorming sessions where the loudest voices dominate. Let people generate ideas independently first. Introverts will produce more and better ideas when they can think without social pressure. Then bring ideas to a group. Third, offer communication flexibility. Some people prefer email, others prefer phone calls. Some want camera on during video meetings, others don't. These aren't personality quirks to overcome. They're legitimate differences in how people work best. Offer choices. Fourth, provide privacy and quiet space. Extroverts thrive in open, collaborative spaces with constant interaction. Introverts need the option for quiet. A truly inclusive workplace has both. Not everyone performs best in the same environment. Fifth, measure actual output, not appearance of busyness. An introvert who works quietly at their desk might be more productive than someone who's constantly talking and in meetings. Judge people on results, not on how visibly social they are. Sixth, recognize that different communication styles can all be professional. A person can be professional without being chatty. A person can be competent without being outgoing. Stop conflating extroversion with professionalism. For individuals, if you're not an introvert but you know one, here's what matters. Accept that they're wired differently, not wrongly. Invite them to things without making them feel obligated. Respect their need for recovery time. Don't assume their quietness means they don't like you. And understand that when they do choose to spend social energy with you, that's a meaningful gift. Their dopamine system is happily in reserve, and they're choosing to be with you anyway. Here's the truth that research keeps confirming. We need introverts. We need their depth of thinking, their careful analysis, their moral integrity, their creativity born from reflection. The world's problems don't get solved by the loudest people. They get solved by the deepest thinkers. When we devalue quiet people, when we force them to pretend to be something they're not, when we build systems that exhaust them, we're not just being unkind. We're making worse decisions, creating less innovation, and losing valuable perspectives. The message of recent neuroscience isn't that everyone should be the same. It's that we should stop assuming that the most outspoken person is the most thoughtful, the most social person is the most capable, or that constant noise is a sign of productivity. Some of the most important thinking happens in silence. If you've watched this far, you probably see yourself somewhere in this, either as an introvert recognizing your own experience, or as someone who knows and cares about a quiet person. Either way, the science is clear. Quiet people aren't broken versions of extroverts. They're operating from a different neurology, one that's just as valuable, just as intelligent, and just as important to the functioning of our society. Here's what I need from you now. First, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into psychology, neuroscience, and human behavior. We release videos on fascinating topics like this every single week, and I know you'll find them valuable. Second, drop a comment below. Tell me, are you an introvert? What's one thing you wish people understood about how you're wired? Or if you're not an introvert, what surprised you most from this research? I read every comment, and our community's insights are part of what makes these videos better and better. Third, and this one matters, share this video with someone in your life who needs to hear it. Whether it's an introvert who's been made to feel wrong, or someone who might finally understand why the quiet person in their life operates differently, this video could genuinely change how they see themselves or someone they care about. If you want to dive even deeper into psychology and human behavior science, check out our playlist on personality psychology. I'll link that in the top comment. And if you have topics you want us to explore, the suggestions that get the most upvotes will likely become future videos. Thank you for investing your time with Wired Logic HQ. Remember, the world needs the quiet ones, and the quiet ones deserve to be understood. I'll see you in the next video.